All right. Good evening, everybody. How are we doing? It's a great start. I'm very thankful for that. I'm really excited you guys are here. Thank you all for coming. If you don't know who I am, I'm Coach Amy, head coach here at Stronger Life. We're going to talk about nutrition this evening. I'm a certified nutrition coach, and I love really just helping people understand the importance of nutrition and why it can really help us make us feel our best, both inside and outside of the gym. Okay, so we're going to start off by just doing a fun little imaginary game thing. First thing I want you to do is fist bump your neighbor, introduce yourself if you don't know them. And I want you to tell your neighbor your absolute favorite food, your favorite, like if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, tell your neighbor what it would be. Fried chicken. That was amazing. Pizza. Pesto. Okay. All right. Now that we have food on the brain a little bit, we're going to start talking kind of about that food and about our nutrition. So I want you to close your eyes. Okay, I'm not going to make you do anything weird. Just go ahead and close your eyes. You can stay seated. But close your eyes, and I want you to picture yourself in your dream car. Okay, you're driving your dream car, the car you've always wanted. Okay, your favorite car, everything you've hoped and dreamed for. Beverly, close your eyes. Okay, we're driving our car. You guys are on your way to Stronger Life. You're so excited for class. It's a beautiful day. Windows are down. Music is moderately high because we don't really like it super loud. When we're driving to class in our dream car, our gas light comes on. Okay, don't have enough gas in our tank. Continue driving, think we can make it. Still really want to make it to class, so we're not too worried about it. Then our check engine light comes on. Okay. Still going to try and make it to class. We don't want to miss that 5-minute cutoff time. Okay, we're still driving. Now our tire pressure light comes on. Okay, our dream car slowly starts to chug down, slow down, and you are stopped at the side of the road. Okay, you're not able to make it to class. You don't have enough gas in your tank to make it to class, and you have to stop what you're doing. Okay, go ahead and open your eyes. As we're talking about nutrition tonight, I want you to visualize yourself as your dream car, okay? There's things that we can do for preventative maintenance on our cars. We want to look at nutrition as preventative maintenance for our bodies, okay? So keep that in mind when we're talking about these topics tonight. So the first thing we'll talk about is just the science of sickness. There's two major contributors to sickness, okay? One is going to be chronic disease. We'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into those here in a second. But chronic disease are the disorders of structure and then the disorders of metabolism, okay? We'll also talk about the role of insulin, okay? What we eat determines what happens within us, okay? So the role of insulin, what drives insulin levels up, okay? Quite a few things up there. I'll kind of go through it. Overeating in general, okay, can drive our insulin levels up, but the overconsumption of carbohydrates. Okay, we'll talk more about carbohydrates in a second, but those are going to be sugars and starches. Now I have the word overconsumption bolded, okay, because it's not just the consumption of carbohydrates. We'll actually talk about why carbohydrates are good for us. So I don't want you to go into this thinking I can't eat carbohydrates, because that is not true, okay? But the overconsumption, eating too many carbohydrates can drive our insulin levels up, okay? These are long chains of sugars that are held together. And then they're broken down, okay? The digestive process breaks them down, breaks them apart, and then they yield to process our glucose, our blood sugar, okay? To bring these levels down, again, we need to limit or kind of decrease our consumption of the carbohydrates, okay? Chronic disease. Chronic disease as we age, we're going to see a couple of things up here that some of us might be familiar with. Chronic disease are broadly defined as a medical condition that lasts a year or longer, okay? And they require medical attention or have an effect on our daily activity or both, okay? Now, you don't have to raise your hand. I know that some of this might be personal information, but I want you to think if you've been to the doctor recently, if you've been told that you are pre-diabetic or you have diabetes or you're on the verge of sarcopenia or osteoporosis, okay? These are things that we talk about often. If you're a member here at Stronger Life, we talk about ways that we can battle these with our workouts. We can also battle these with our nutrition. Okay, so diabetes, we just talked about our insulin resistance. This is too much blood sugar in our system. Okay, sarcopenia as we age, 3 to 5% of our muscle mass decreases per decade. Okay, but we'll talk about ways that we can increase that and maintain that. Osteoporosis is our low mineral bone mass. Okay, deterioration of our bone tissue. Again, there's things that we can do with our nutrition to help maintain or improve that. And then arthritis. A lot of us have chronic inflammation. Okay, if we have arthritis, there's foods that we can consume that increase our inflammation, which we might want to avoid, but there's also foods that we can eat to help decrease that and kind of avoid that inflammation. Okay. Now this is just kind of a graph of the general overall health system. Okay, not system, but we want to think of ourselves as in the wellness part of the continuum, which is in the center there. But sickness, wellness, and fitness are based off of a lot of different measures. Okay, some of these measures could be our blood pressure, our body fat, our bone density, our muscle mass, things like that. The assumption is that if we can look at all of these measurements, we find ourselves, no matter what level they're on, we either find ourselves in the sickness category, the wellness category, or the fitness category. Okay. Our hope is that we can move our marker from the sickness up towards the wellness and maintain that, or move ourselves a little bit closer to the fitness side by having healthy measures of these things, of our blood pressure and our body fat, cholesterol levels, and things like that. Okay. So in order to do that, in order to move ourselves from the sickness up to wellness or over to fitness, we need to be eating a diet of quality foods, okay? That's going to help push our health markers away from the sickness side of the continuum, more towards the wellness, and then over again to the fitness side, okay? This will help with how we feel, but also how we can perform in the gym and outside of the gym, okay? So a high quality food is an unprocessed or a minimally processed food, okay? A processed food is typically packaged. It's going to have ingredients added to it, such as sugars, starches, sodium, oils, okay? Things that are added to your food, again, typically packaged. So unprocessed foods are where we want a majority of our diet to come from, okay? What are some examples of unprocessed foods? You can just shout them out. Fruits, vegetables, nuts. Excellent. Yeah. So again, not saying that we can't have processed foods, but we want to minimize the consumption of them and really focus our diet around unprocessed foods, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about is protein. Protein is probably the biggest. What is protein? What can it do for me? The biggest question that people ask me is, how much protein do I need? What is protein? Things like that. So if there's one thing you take away from tonight, I want you to realize how important protein is, especially as we age. Okay. Protein is essential for building our muscle mass. Okay. It is one of 3 macronutrients. A macronutrient just means that we need it in large amounts. It's going to be able to provide us with energy and gas in our car. Okay. And is essential for building or maintaining that muscle mass. What can protein do for us? When we consume protein, it breaks down into amino acids. There are 2 different types of amino acids. There's essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Non-essential, our body produces naturally, okay? So essential amino acids, we can't produce naturally, so we need to consume them through our food. We can do so by eating protein, okay? So our body needs that to function properly, and we can only get that through protein or supplementation, okay? Why is it important to maintain or increase our consumption as we age? To maintain our muscle mass, okay? And again, we talk about this a lot in the gym to get strong and be able to push ourselves and work out. Being able to do that, having strong muscles, we're going to gain that from eating our protein, okay? So different types of protein. There's 2 different types of protein. We have our animal sources, okay, and our plant sources. An animal source is considered a complete protein, which means it contains all of the essential amino acids that we need to eat, okay? A plant-based source is an incomplete protein, which just means that it doesn't have all of the essential amino acids. But if we're plant-based or vegetarian, whatever it might be, you can still get all of those amino acids just with a wider variety of foods, okay? So I might need to eat some beans and some vegetables and a little bit of tofu throughout my day versus just having a chicken breast, okay? Are there any other types of animal or plant-based sources that you can think of that aren't listed up there? That's not a trick question. I was just curious. All right, we'll move on then. Okay, so another one of the big questions I get asked is how much protein do I need? Okay, we'll talk about this, break this down here in a second, but just in general, this is going to sound like a lot of protein. Okay, I know, I didn't even say anything and everybody's looking at it like it's too much. Okay, it is recommended for the active aging adult, okay, that you have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Okay, again, that's going to sound like a lot. If I weigh 170 pounds, that means my goal every day is to try to eat 170 grams of protein. I know, okay. We'll talk a little bit later about how we can get to that number, okay. I always like to say when it comes to protein, especially if we don't know how much we're eating right now, slowly start to add in those amounts to get to that number. A very generalized number can be 100 grams, okay. If I need a starting point, I'm going to tell myself, say, I need 100 grams of protein, even if I maybe in the long run need 170, okay? But again, the importance of that protein is to help build and maintain our muscle mass, okay? How do we get enough protein? Lots of different ways that we can do this. On this side here, I have different amounts of foods equaling a different amount of protein in grams, okay? But a couple of things that we can think about, how do I get enough protein? I want you to start your day with protein. If I have to get 100 grams and I don't eat a meal that has protein in it until 7 p.m., it's going to be almost impossible for me to get 100 grams of protein unless I enjoy eating like 100 pounds of steak for dinner, okay? So start your day with protein. Have it at breakfast. Have it before you come to work out. Another thing we want to think about is planning our meals around our protein source, okay? If I know that I really want to have sweet potato fries for dinner, I can't just have sweet potato fries for dinner. I could, but it wouldn't be smart of me. I'm going to make sure that I have some type of protein with it, okay? I want to have protein at breakfast, I want to have protein at lunch, and I want to have protein at dinner, okay? All of our meals, our snacks, our protein is going to help us feel full throughout the day, so that can help with those hunger feelings as well. But we also want to space that protein out throughout the day. Again, I wouldn't want to wait to have all my 100 grams of protein at 7 o'clock at night. Okay, one that it's going to be really hard to do that. You're also going to not feel good afterwards. So we want to space it out throughout the day. If I know that I'm starting my breakfast with 30 grams of protein, I have 30 grams at lunch. I'm already 60 into my 100 grams. I just need 40 more for my snack and dinner. Okay, so that's another good way to make sure we're getting enough throughout our day. Another thing we'll talk about here in a second is supplementing our protein when we need to, okay? Protein bars, protein shakes, things like that. They're not something that I would recommend having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day of the week, right? We want to work on those unprocessed, minimally processed foods, but a protein shake to help me get to my daily goals can be helpful, okay? So another common, oh yeah, go for it. I would recommend that you have a variety of protein sources. You can, I have a protein shake or a protein bar probably every other day, okay? Because I'm always away from the house. They're great to have on the go, but I wouldn't recommend not having any type of unprocessed types of protein because all of our protein shakes and bars are going to be processed. They're going to have all the added ingredients and everything in there. Does that answer your question? I wouldn't want you to have a protein shake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. That would not be ideal. And if we're doing that, we need to talk. Okay? Because think of all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we can get from either our animal-based or our plant-based proteins. Okay? But we can talk more about that later. So another common question I'm asked is, what is the best protein shake? Okay. The best protein shake that you can drink is one that you enjoy. Okay. I'm not going to tell you to drink a chocolate Premier Protein if you don't like chocolate, right? So it needs to be something that you're going to enjoy, but there are a couple of things that we can think about when we're trying to choose which one is going to be the best one for us. Okay. Now, the cafe latte here, that is a Premier Protein shake. We'll talk about this one first. A couple of things to think about will be the ratio of fats and carbohydrates to protein, okay? The amount of protein, and then the added sugars in your shake or your bar, your supplement, Okay. So in the cafe latte one here, we see a total fat of 3 grams. Okay. 0 trans fat. We'll talk about that here in a second. That's a good thing. 5 grams of carbohydrates, and then 30 grams of protein. So in my opinion, of these 2 labels, that would be the better option for me because of the ratio of fat and carbohydrates, the amount of protein that it has. Okay. And then we'll also see that this one here has, it has 1 gram of sugar, but no added sugar. So there's been no sugar added to that to make it taste better. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So there's, we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into our carbohydrates, but she makes a good point that our carbohydrates are sugars, right? But specifically for the label of the supplements, the added sugars is definitely something that we want to avoid. But if I were to track this, I would consider it as 5 grams of sugar, 5 grams of carbs. Yep. And then the label that we have on the right there, okay, we're going to see 16 grams of protein. That's not a whole lot for a supplement, especially if that's my protein source for that meal. Okay, we typically want to aim for about 25 to 35 grams of protein per meal. That's just a very generalized number. It's going to have 2 grams of fat. Not too bad. It has 19 grams of carbohydrates. Okay, that's, in my opinion, a lot for a protein supplement. Okay, and then this one also has some added sugar. So sugar has been added to it to alter the taste of it, to make it taste better. But, okay. So again, in my opinion, this would be the better option because of those 3 things: the amount, carbs to fat, and added sugars. Okay. Now, again, as Bev had asked, we do want to keep our protein more towards the unprocessed foods so we can get the vitamins and minerals from those natural nutrients. But protein shakes and bars are great ways to get to our protein goal if we need to supplement that. Okay. Yeah. See, and that's where it gets, technically it comes in a container, but there's types of, it really kind of depends on almost every question that's asked. When it comes to Greek yogurt, there's some great brands that have natural ingredients. I can't think of anything specific, but there is one that I don't eat because it has added sugar. Like one of the first ingredients is sugar. But the kind I'm thinking off of the top of my head is the Oikos Pro, has 20 grams of protein. The ingredients label, again, it's a processed foods, but in comparison to all the other yogurts, if I'm going to have a yogurt, I'm going to just try and choose the better option. So, yep.
Expensive too.
That is not wrong. Any other questions on that? Yeah, you're okay. Yeah, if you, again, unless you're adding like a pound of sugar to that, if you can make something, that's going to be a lot better than anything you can get from, well, I shouldn't say anything, but majority of things that you can get from the grocery store, because a lot of our processed foods that we see in the store right now have things added to them to prolong the shelf life. Things are added to them that don't necessarily need to be in them if we were to just consume them that day. So if you can make something on your own, that's ideal. But yeah. Has anybody made yogurt before? Really? That's awesome. Yeah. Any oh, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But again, there's certain brands that we, if I enjoy yogurt and I want to have that in my daily routine, I'm going to pick one that has a certain amount of protein, no added sugars and things like that. Okay. And that goes for a lot of our packaged foods. So the second macronutrient, again, a macronutrient is just something that our body needs in large amounts. We have our protein, our carbohydrates is our second one here. Carbohydrates tend to have a bad rep because, again, we talked earlier about our insulin levels. The overconsumption of carbohydrates are a common way for people to gain weight, okay? But when we're looking at sources of carbohydrates, again, I want you to think about gas in your tank. We can use our protein, we can use our carbohydrates as energy for our body, okay? So some sources of carbohydrates are broken down into 2 sources. We have our complex carbohydrates and our simple carbohydrates. And again, you may have seen, if you're familiar with these words, you may have seen that one is good and one is bad. Also not true. They just are what they are, okay? But complex carbohydrates digest more slowly, okay, because they consist of fiber and starch. They're going to gradually release themselves into our bloodstream, Okay. Yep. Exactly. Yep. We'll talk about some examples here in a second. That's a great example. Our simple carbohydrates are digested a little more quickly. Okay. And they're going to spike our blood sugar faster and make it a little bit higher. Okay. These can be, but are not just set to added to foods. Okay. So some examples of complex carbohydrates, maybe something that has fiber or starch, something that would break down a little bit slowly. What would be some examples of complex carbohydrates? Yep. What was the other one? Yep. Beans. Yep. Exactly. So again, all those foods that we just named off, they're not good or bad, right? They're just complex carbohydrates. Okay. They can give us energy to do what we need to do. Okay. Our simple carbohydrates, what are some examples there? Chocolate. Chocolate. Any other ones? Okay, so those are all good examples. Wine and chocolate, apparently. But something to think about, some other simple carbohydrates, honey. Okay, honey's not bad for you. It's just a simple carbohydrate, right? Candies, those sugars, sodas, I'm sorry. So simple carbohydrates, again, there's fruits that are simple carbohydrates. Grapes. That is more of a simple carbohydrate because typically the carbohydrates in peanut butter come from sugar. Yes. Correct. Correct. Yep, that is very true. And especially when we're looking at the 3 macronutrients, that's going to be more towards the focus of fats. But we would still consider that. I'll get back to you on that one, actually. Yeah. Yep. So that's a good question. So when it comes to those are technically considered simple carbohydrates. We'll get a little more into that. We'll talk about our cohort later on, but in general, those again aren't necessarily bad. There's a lot of different, yes, they're good, yes, they're bad. But it really depends on the amounts that we're eating and if we're having them in moderation. But those would be considered a simple sugar. Yep. All right. So then our carbohydrates, our third macronutrient, which again means that our body needs them in large amounts, will be our fats. Okay. Fats are used for energy. So again, gas in our tank, and can also help absorb the nutrients that we get from our foods, help absorb our vitamins and minerals. Okay. So there's different types of fats. If you ask me if there's a certain food that you shouldn't eat, I'm never going to tell you, you can't have sugar, you can't have this, you can't have that, it's bad for you. I will tell you that you should not have trans fatty acids. Okay. We want to avoid hydrogenated oils. And again, avoid them, not necessarily completely eliminate them from your diet and never have them ever again for the rest of your life. But when we're looking at fats, unsaturated fats, these are considered healthy fats. Okay. These can help lower our cholesterol levels. Okay. Increase our good cholesterol. They're broken down into monosaturated and then polyunsaturated. Okay. So examples would be walnuts, salmon, okay, things like that. And again, we need them in different amounts in comparison to our carbohydrates and our proteins, but we do need them to help absorb the nutrients of the other foods that we're eating. Okay. Saturated fats, again, these aren't things that you necessarily have to, unless you're told by your doctor, I'm not a doctor, that you necessarily have to completely eliminate, but we would want to eat in moderation or less of our saturated fats, which are going to be dairy products, full fat dairy products, red meat products, and oils. Okay. And again, that doesn't mean that they're bad. We just need less of them. Okay. When it comes to hydrogenated oils, though, things like fast food, baked goods, things like that have a lot of additives, a lot of things that our body doesn't need. This is one of the food groups that can help or cause inflammation. Okay. So we want to try and avoid or minimize our consumption of them. Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. That's a good point. That is a good point. All right. So sugar. Ooh. Again, there's just as a nutrition coach and somebody who is just a normal human being, I'm not going to tell you to completely eliminate sugar from your diet, right? It's not very realistic, especially in today's society. Every one of us probably enjoys sitting down and having a little bowl of ice cream or whatever it might be. But again, when we're talking about, we go back to our minimally processed foods or our unprocessed foods, we want to think about limiting our consumption, okay? I will be honest and say that has anybody been to Trader Joe's and seen those like teeny tiny little ice cream cones? I have probably at one every day, and that's my treat, and I'm happy with it, okay? But what I don't do every single day is sit down and eat a whole box of them, right? That would be overconsumption of our sugars. I have done that one time, though. I'm going to be very honest. I can't leave without admitting that. But it was a terrible, I had a good reason for it, okay? But again, I promise, okay? But limiting our sugars. And again, this is our simple carbohydrates, but we're talking more so like our donuts, our candies, our sodas, things like that. Kind of empty calories when we're looking at those. Okay. All right. So we talked earlier about our chronic disease. We talked about our osteopenia, sarcopenia, arthritis. There's a few things that we can either avoid or add to our diet to help with inflammation. Okay. As we age, our ability to control our inflammation responses goes down. Okay. So some things that we can add to our diet. Sometimes inflammation can be triggered by processed meats. Okay. Saturated fats, added sugars, fried foods. Again, all the things that we're already going to try to eat in moderation or eliminate from our diet. Okay. A couple of things that we can add to our diet or focus on eating to help with inflammation will be green, kind of dark leafy greens, okay? Berries, fatty fish, again, our salmon is a good example of that, walnuts, and olive oil. These, again, if we've noticed kind of the trend here, are more towards the unprocessed or minimally processed foods, okay? So hopefully we're going to already start doing that. That'll help with your inflammation, okay? So what else is important when we're looking at our nutrition, how we feel, what we can do for our body to make us feel good? Hydration, the amount of water that we're drinking, okay? Every time I tell you to drink water when you're in class, I want you to drink water so you're staying hydrated, okay? Our sleep plays a big role into how we can feel, how we can push ourselves in our workouts, how we can make it through our day. Sleep is really important. We talked a little bit about supplementation with our protein. There's other types of supplementations that we can do if we need to get different vitamins or minerals and we're not getting those through our nutrition. We can supplement those. And then other things that we can focus on are what we eat before and after our workout, okay, to make sure that we get the best out of our workout, but then also feel good to come back the next day, okay? So I want to kind of wrap up a couple of things here. I want you to go ahead and close your eyes again, okay? You are now in the driver's seat of your dream car, okay? You have gas in your tank. Your engine light is off. Windows are down. Music is moderately high. You're feeling good on your way to Stronger Life class. And you have enough fuel in your tank to make it to class and have a good workout. Okay? Go ahead and open your eyes. How good does that feel? We'll talk about dream cars later because I'm really curious to see what everybody's is. But the preventative maintenance that we can do on our cars, okay, to avoid them shutting down and having to take them to the shop, somebody else taking care of them. The nutrition that we focus on is our preventative maintenance for our bodies, okay? If we neglect those preventative maintenance things in our car, in our bodies, the more likely it is that somebody else is going to have to take care of that for us, okay? So just a little review of what we talked about. Filling our gas tank, okay, using our carbohydrates, our proteins, and our fats as energy for our body to help get us through our day. Focusing on 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, okay? Again, the importance of protein, maintaining and building that muscle mass. Eating whole, minimally processed foods. And then good and bad versus quality and quantity. We want to focus on the quality of our food and the quantity of our food and not really look at foods as good or bad, okay? Because we need carbohydrates, right, in certain amounts for energy. We need protein in higher amounts for energy. We need some fats in certain amounts for our energy, okay?